Sometimes we're short on time, and it's nice to have something that you can fall back on and have ready to go fairly quickly, or that you can make ahead. And this is one of those dishes. This is an everyday chili. It's not something special. It's not something super spicy, but it's something that pretty much everybody in your family is probably going to like. What we're going to do is start with a tablespoon of vegetable oil, and I've got about a medium onion chopped up here. Fairly well chopped up. Then I've got a green pepper that you either could have frozen early on in the season during the warmer part of the year to stir in here. And then I've got a tablespoon of chopped up garlic that we're going to add. We're going to let these saute for about 4 minutes until the onion starts to be translucent. I'm going to add to this, now that we've got the peppers and the onions softened up a bit, I've got a teaspoon of dried oregano and a tablespoon each of dried cumin and chili powder. Now, depending on your family, of course, you can adjust these seasonings. We're going to let these stay on the heat just like this for about a minute, and that will really get those flavors developing and make them taste better, but it's also going to do wonderful things to the smells in your house. Now I've got about 3 cups of beans, or if you're using commercially canned beans or home canned beans, use about 2 pints of those by the time you get the liquid off. Make sure you drain them well. That will help reduce some of the flatulence problems for those people who suffer that. I've also added about a cup to a cup and a half of chopped tomatoes. You can either use whole tomatoes that you've chopped up or buy diced, or use your own homemade diced ones. This is where you really need to look at how your family reacts to heat. The recipe calls for somewhere between 1 to 3 jalapeno peppers chopped up, and I just put in 2, which may be stretching it for some of the folks that I know, but you may actually want to even go beyond that. Depends on who you're serving to. Then we've got 2 cups of beef broth minus 3 tablespoons. I took 3 tablespoons out. We're going to use that a little bit later, combining it with a little bit of cornmeal, and that's going to help thicken this up when we're done. This needs to now simmer uncovered for about 10 minutes. Those of you that really associate chili with meat may be surprised to find that there's none here, but rest assured that if you in fact want to have meat in your chili, you could do that easily with this one. I just added earlier on, brown it when you're browning the onions and the peppers in the first step, and proceed from there. This one also I used pinto beans. You could use other types of beans, but one of the things you need to know is that the type of bean, whether you make it yourself and cook the beans up yourself, or whether you use canned beans, is really going to affect the sodium content. If you use canned beans, the sodium content per serving is going to be over 1,000 milligrams. If you do the beans yourself, by soaking them overnight and cooking them, the sodium content is going to be less than 150 milligrams. So if you're on sodium restricted, it really pays off to go ahead and do that step yourself. Do the whole pound, freeze the extra for another day, but that step can save you a lot of heartache later on. The last step in this one is to thicken it just a little bit, and I have 2 tablespoons of just regular cornmeal, and then remember that 3 tablespoons of beef broth that we saved earlier. I'm going to stir these together. Now cornmeal will lump if you just stir that in, so we're going to stir it a little bit here, get the lumps out while the mixture is still cold. And then I'm going to, while stirring, blend this into the chili. And that will enable us to get a little bit of thickening, but not have any lumps to it. It's also a little bit different way to thicken. It doesn't do as much thickening as cornstarch would or as flour would. And it adds a little bit, just a slight interesting texture. This is going to simmer for 10 minutes. And then it would be ready to eat. However, if you really want it to taste the best, I'd recommend that you make it up at least 2 hours ahead of time, put it in the refrigerator, let it chill down, and let those flavors really marry together. And then reheat it again, either that 2 hours later or the next day, and you'll have something that is really a nice, warm meal for the winter months ahead. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.